Hello, I'm David Hepworth. Thanks for clicking this word in your ear, the latest of hundreds of chats Mark Allen and I have had over recent years, some between ourselves and others with musicians, authors, comedians, and other people we like. If you'd like to help make sure they continue, you might consider being a Patreon supporter by visiting patreon.com/wordinyour-ear, or just by liking or subscribing in whatever way you prefer. On with the show.
Word down your way. Testing 2, 2.
Welcome to this and the cheering news that John Lydon has more public image dates next year and is extending his spoken word tour, which guarantees enormous wit, righteous indignation, and a splendid time for all. John, it's lovely to see you again.
Thank you, you liar.
No, it is. And you're back in Malibu. They're back home, aren't you?
We call it Malubu here.
Malubu.
Yes, I'm a Malubian.
Do you miss the old country?
What old country would that be?
Well, this one, the one that I'm talking to you from, as in the United Kingdom.
Of course I do. I love all things British. I love all things Irish. And over the years, I've become seriously in love with most things American too. I like the travelling around and not permanently residing in one place. And I think that comes from my father, who was a bit of a traveller himself. So, the Jippo rubbed off.
So you don't miss, the Archers or Marmite or, going to see the Arsenal.
I think the Archers were before my time, you saucy old thing.
I don't think so. We're roughly the same age, actually.
I've never liked Marmite. I think it's vile. I was a Bovril man. Because that's indeed in them cold, bloody winters, particularly around Boxing Day at Highbury. You'd freeze to death in that ground. And a hot Bovril for £1 was absolutely stunning what it would do to your poor little blue fingers.
You see, you are getting misty-eyed. You are getting nostalgic. But look, John,
misty-eyed, it's because of allergies, believe me.
Allergies. But
I'm all cried out.
As I said, you've extended the spoken word tour. Now, you did a whole load of dates already this year. And obviously, this has really worked for you, hasn't it? This is you just on stage, I think, with no interviewer. Is that right? It's just you.
Yeah, nothing. Just
talking and taking questions from the audience.
Yep.
Tell us how it went.
Yeah, amazingly well. I thought it would make me feel sad and down and kind of like a death knell to everything that I've been doing all my life. Because the death of your wife and then your best mate, all in the same time period.
Yes, that was your friend Rambo died, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I remember meeting him. Quite a terrifying man, actually.
But... he's a little Arsenal terror, that one.
Yeah.
But I really miss them, and I didn't know if I could do it alone. And, well, it's like how I learned swimming. I was pushed in at the deep end, so it's sink or swim time. And I like to do that. I like to challenge myself that way. But the overwhelming sense of camaraderie from the crowds was just excellent. And reminded me not to wallow in self-pity, which is, of course, what my mum and dad would always recommend. Avoid that like the plague. But to open up and share a bit of pain with others and find a humour in it. Because with my Irish background dictates that we laugh at funerals and we cry at weddings.
That's right. We do.
And so it became quite natural, and I really got fond of doing it. But this time out now, we're including a lot of Irish dates in places like Cork and Galway.
Where you used to go, didn't you, as a kid when you were 7?
As a child.
Didn't you go on holidays there when you were young?
Every year we'd have to go to Cork and put up with farm life. So I know the rear end of a cow, all right.
But you got good memories of that?
Yeah, very good memories. But I'd always terrified of the insect life because My granddad built the house in Cork, but it was he built it over a dirt floor, and the chickens would run around, and there'd be these enormous beetles and spiders, and the whole thing as a young kid terrified me. The way I got out of that, oddly enough, was when I did the I'm a Celebrity. Fantastic. I'm in a jungle. I've got no choice but to get on with these damn critters. And I just got into relaxing, and then they leave you alone.
Yeah, you'd done the hard yards. You'd prepared. There would be nothing that would scare you, presumably, on the insect front.
This is what I find in life. All those experiences when you're young and you don't appreciate what they can lead to, they come back not to haunt you, but to help you years and years and years later. It's quite brilliant to be able to store those memories. And when you're in a challenging situation, go, I've got something like that in my kit. Bingo.
So when you're, for people who haven't been to see this, when you're on stage, are there a certain number of themes that you do before you open it up to the audience? Do you talk about parts of your life?
I don't do nude.
Don't do nude. But do you talk about, because last time we talked to you on the pod, you were talking about these amazing stories about just growing up in North London and, just the...
Yeah, I share all those memories, because that's how I am what I am. That's the making of me. I wasn't just some idiot like invented by Malcolm McLaren, which is what he would have you believe. And so it was kind of like important and challenging, and also to remind you of why Nora loved me so much and I loved her, and why out and out right top hooligans like Rambo would be my best mate.
Other things that you always talk about then?
No, it depends on what pops up in the head. If I look out and I can see, sometimes I can read people's eyes and I can see they're gagging at something there to like hear me discuss, and I'll dive into that. Right. The bit I love most is the meet and greet before, because that gives me the guidelines as to what's going to follow. Now, in that period, that's when people tell you their own pains. And them sharing those pains is a marvellous privilege. It really is. And it makes you humble, As again, like I indicate, you have to kick self-pity out. And sometimes you can't do that on your own. But an audience will definitely be a help.
So you talk to them. That's really interesting. You talk to them before you go on. And some of the things that people say then lead to threads that you develop when you're on stage?
Yeah.
So what kind of things?
Well, I'm always looking for connections. It's my favourite idea of a night out is to sit in a strange pub and chat with not only the old folk, but the locals. And they'll start telling you stuff that's going on around there. That's fantastically rewarding, that kind of communication. Places where they're not all on cell phones doing that. That kind of thing. And that seems to be a dying attitude. Modern society looks down and frowns upon such ideologies as communication and empathy with your fellow human beings. I like it like that.
And you like it. And obviously your spoken word tour is doing a great deal towards reinstating that.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing. Don't get me wrong. God's sake, the pain I go through before I go on, and the exhaustion, mental exhaustion, is far worse than physical. Physical comes from live gigs, but the mental anguish, the doubt you raise in yourself is actually a really healthy thing. And that's something I discovered when I'd read, like the autobiographies of say, Laurence Olivier or John Gielgud or Alec Guinness. They all mentioned stage fright and how they coped with it. That was when I was young. That was very important to me because I thought I was the only one who shit his pants.
But But if you're not nervous, then you're not really
nervous,
ready for it, are you?
Got the energy, the inner wisdom, the inner energy doesn't come through. Right? And so you need all that. So once you understand that's a process, rather than fight it, bask in its misery.
So before you take questions from people, you go on with planned ideas of things you're going to talk about, I guess. You don't talk.
Absolutely loose.
Completely spontaneous.
Yeah. And I'd tell you who I've got in mind when I do that is I once went to see Heaven 17, funnily enough. We went to see a Frankie Howerd live. Yes, of course, he scripts and he has setups. And, well, one of the setups involved one of the Heaven 17, Greg boys. And but the rest of it, when he started to improvise, by gosh, it was fantastic. Because he'd tell you little stories and give you an insight into why this preposterous person was really not so bad after all. Really loved that. Bob Monkhouse, I've seen live a few times. God, he was insanely rude.
I saw him too. Very funny. Incredible.
Very funny. You know, you'd shout out the golden shot and he'd have a different variety of reasons. Sometimes he connected with golden showers.
That's delightful. But I guess if you've been doing it that long, you've got a one-liner prepared for every available heckle, haven't you?
Not really, no. Heckling is improv. There's quite a few people out there. Jimmy Carr's great at that. Boom, you know. I like that, like on the ball, and it's fear that keeps you in that mode, that fear of letting people down and letting yourself down and succumbing to anger and useless, like, self-pity again. You know, take it on the chin. If it's a really good remark, wallow in it and share the giggle.
So Bob Monkhouse
and being Johnny Rotten, of course. Being Johnny Rotten, I mean, there's a ton coming at me.
Yeah, there would be. Yeah, Bob Monkhouse and Frankie Howerd, really good examples. But anyone else you saw throughout your life, just kind of spoken word, comedians, whatever.
Yeah,
musicians.
Tommy Cooper.
Yeah.
Oh my God! You know. There was one that I could never figure out. Was this staged and done ever so brilliantly? Or was it really chaotic, comedic anarchy? And I think the key to it is it's a touch of both, you know? You're on stage. That's planned.
That's the extent of it.
What happens next is, you know, open to misinterpretation, shall we say?
I think the majority of stand-ups just have a large amount of material prepared, and they can go off
incredible bravery.
Tangents.
They have an incredible bravery.
Incredible bravery, yeah.
But also a deep sadness, and when that comes through underneath it, that's when it's really, well, that's pathos, isn't it? It's just
that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because you do get the feeling that with most comedians that there is something essentially very sad inside them, isn't there? That they need to somehow do this to be able to counteract it.
Yeah, well, I can directly connect that to my own childhood, which was miserable. You know, a sad, lonely, shy little thing I was, sick all the time, in hospital for a year, all of that, recovering, not knowing who anyone was. So, you know, Dummy Dum Dum was my nickname. And all of that. But it's like I needed to go through that to be me now. So, you know, praises be unto the Lord for torturing me so.
So is it partly therapy for you?
Sadness is a thing that's really got to be observed better. And not in a too Bob Sad Sack way.
No, fair. Is it partly therapeutic for you?
I suppose it is. A live performance is definitely that way. The two are quite different. One is the stand-up, if you want to call that. I'm standing up. Hey, folks, there's a miracle. But on stage with Pill is magical. The way we read each other and how we can flow in the middle of a song into another completely extreme and different pattern and do it all with a sense of empathy. That's the love and joy. That's why I've often said, like, what's Pill like live? And I go, it's like opera. A proper opera. I'm not talking about something at the Royal Gala or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm talking like in Italy, where people get up and sing along with the singer, you know, and stuff done in churches where you get that natural reverb. And everybody joins in. Fantastic atmosphere, that. And it takes the songs into areas that they should be going into. It's one thing, and it's a great thing to make a record. It's a privilege, actually. But it's another to expand on it live, knowing you could screw this up at any second.
Yeah.
Oh, that knife edge is so delicious.
So there's lots of spontaneity, and there's lots of experiment, there's lots of development of what you've got on the record.
Yeah.
Is it never the same the next night, as it were?
It's never the same, ever. And we've got albums out there of us live, and you can hear each night. Might be a completely different set, might not be, but they're as different as if they were.
What do you think Public Image are offering that you don't normally get when you go out and see bands? Cheaper tickets. Any crackdown on the phones?
No bizarro light show to cover up the lack of ingenuity by the performers. Just absolutely down to simples. You know, a few torches above our head and we're happy.
Yeah, don't you think everything's moving towards the idea of spectacle and kind of dazzling people, and as if the visual stimulus will be enough to make you think you've been entertained?
It's a shame that bands waft into that. You know, is that a midlife crisis on their part? You know, that just won't go away.
Yeah.
If you're ringing what you're doing and surrounding it and encamping it in that kind of distraction, well, then it's not so really important, is it? Because you're not communicating directly with human beings beyond that point. You're into frivolity. It's like Christmas decorations. I love a pine tree. I don't like a pine tree with baubles on it.
What have you learnt then over the years about
I like the way the tree sticks up the fairy's dress, though, at the top. I must say, that's a good one.
No, it all works, doesn't it? What have you what have you learned over the years then about performing?
Not to take it too serious, which of course I do, but to have that duality going on in my brain, you know, that self-doubt is really, really, it's what gives you the energy to go on and on and on.
Just going back to the spoken word thing, there are various musicians who did a bit of that. James Taylor did some, and Ray Davies did some, and I just wondered if there's anybody...
Oh, Ray Davies is just, for me, one of the most fantastic songwriters. You know.
Did you ever see his spoken word when he was playing and talking between songs?
No, I never did.
Songs?
I never did, and I hate myself for not. It's just the lyrics in those songs are so vital and fantastic. I feel the same way about Bryan Ferry, by the way. I think his songwriting is just fantastic. It creates...
What is it about it that you like so much?
The atmosphere those few poignant words create.
Yeah.
He really is the most decadent ballroom dancer of all time.
Lovely description. He'd be very touched by that.
Well, he's a very, very gentle man.
Yeah, he is. But are there others? I keep thinking I'd like to see Jarvis Cocker on a spoken word talk, because you're a real pioneer of this, you know, or Elvis Costello, or Randy Newman, or Courtney Love.
Didn't he run on stage? Was it Michael Jackson he interrupted, or somebody?
He was. He did at the Brit Awards. He got up mooned in the middle of Earth song. It was a great moment. And was then arrested. And then I think Bob Mortimer, in the capacity of an ex-lawyer, had to come and bail him out.
What a fantastic story.
No, it's terrific.
Nice one, Jarvie.
That's it.
I like Bob Mortimer. He makes me laugh. And I love Vic Reeves too. But Vic Reeves reminds me of Sid Vicious. I can't help it. That's how Sid's real character was before the heroin. And that's why I miss him dearly.
Do you still miss him?
Oh, yes. Yes, that sense of loss never goes away. You know,
did you see the thing?
I'll catch myself sometimes. Just it happens au natural. Just talking to my dead and departed friends, to Nora, to my mum, my dad, and it's kind of good. It's like something twigs in my head. They're still there somewhere.
That's really fascinating. You still think about him so much.
Oh, yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, their space will never be filled. There's room for all.
I was reading something this morning about the new film Gladiator II, and the two emperors, Emperor Gita and Emperor Caracalla, I think, were interviewed, Joseph Quinn and Fred Hashimoto.
Caracalla? But didn't he make Japanese war movies?
It's entirely possible. And they're talking about what they based their character on.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, they're talking about what they based their character on. They said they based their character on Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious. Did you read that?
That's hilarious because what's the actor that did the Joker and died? What was his name? Blonde-haired fella. When he was asked about how he prepared for the Joker, he said he based it on Johnny Rotten.
Oh, yes. I want to say Heath Ledger. I'm not right, am I?
Yes.
It was him.
Yeah. What a strange name.
How interesting that you've become a kind of benchmark.
Well, the character that, like, I don't know, I didn't create it like some artist. Like, I'm not going to take credit for it. It's a natural progression of all that pent-up shyness let loose on stage. An explosion. I absolutely can't control this one, like, vibe, which is kind of thrilling for me because in the back of my head I go, my God, did I just do that? Did I just say that? Yes, you did, John.
I said it out loud. Yeah. But also it's the look, isn't it? Because they've kind of, the Gladiator II, it's that kind of pasty, skinny, scrawny. that kind of the John Rotten.
I'm none of those things these days.
You certainly were anyway. But it's amazing. It's still a benchmark, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, if I'm judged by that alone, that's great, you know, because the more mature Rotten's a little harder to interpret. Nonetheless.
Why harder?
That was my first run on the ladder, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the first dog out of the gate. Raring to go. Yes, I'm comparing myself to a greyhound.
So when people come up to you, at book signings and things, I can remember I interviewed you at a book signing I think it was in Chester Literary Festival. You were fantastic. Longest book signing queue I think I've ever seen in my life.
Was that the one John Cleese was at?
No, I don't think he was at that one, actually. We would have noticed him. But yeah, it was Chester anyway. And people have that tiny moment when you're signing their book to say something to you. What is it they want to say normally? Is it they talk about a time they saw you or a problem
they want to tell me they care.
Something?
They want to tell me they care. Right? And the loss of words in them and unable to get out what they've been thinking about all day, I think is extremely touching and tells me more than the pre-planned sentences ever would have. And that's true empathy. I mean, I sometimes I will rehearse dialogue for the stand-up, but I never use any of it. It's like an exercise. Because when it's in the moment, it ain't nothing like in the hotel room beforehand. Catchers catch can. So, folks, don't be scared of Johnny. You know, I know what you feel, and I know what you're going through. You know, I've got small, minute examples of that in my own life. But
why do you think people can feel they can open up to you? Because I think a lot of people would find you intimidating, but that's clearly not the case, is it?
Because I suffered crippled emotions when I was young and managed to find a way out of that. And so that's really what you're leading into. That's what Mr. Rotten did. He went, "Get up, you lazy, self-pitying good-for-nothing."
I remember you saying when we talked to you before that you being thrown out of the house by your father was one of the most important things that ever happened to you, and a kind of life-changing moment.
Well, it stopped me being a cuckoo.
Yeah.
You know? And instead it turned into one flew over the cuckoo's nest. It meant I had to get out and bloody work things out for myself. And by jingo, I did. You know, of course, I pushed all the buttons with my dad to drive him crazy. Get your hair cut, you know, all of that. Because I had extremely long hair. You know.
I love the pictures of you when you're about 16. Yeah, you look like Iggy Pop, don't you?
No, I was a huge Hawkwind fan. And I loved what heavy metal was at that time, even though they called it prog rock and status quo. God, I always wanted to have hair like Rossi.
That's fair enough. It's a reasonable ambition.
Yeah, but I was missing the one little plot that you got to wash it occasionally, as it won't be so thick. And so all of that. But my dad, you look like a girl. So I went out and I had it cropped and I had it dyed bright green. And I came home and there, look, Dad, I did just what you wanted. Get off the horse, you look like a Brussels sprout. And so, I mean, we laughed at that years later, just how insanely aggravating I was and how I wanted to aggravate him. And a lot of that might go down to a meningitis, you see, being a year in hospital and losing all my memories and that and trying to remember who I was. It took years. But I know because my dad and mum explained this to me that they blamed themselves for my illness, which was completely wrong.
Why did they blame themselves?
Because that's the Irish way. Oh, we must, let him play with the rats once too often. I'm laughing now and I look back on it. And I was thinking that they blamed me, right? And so all of that confusion, when it got sorted out, was wonderful. But it is about being able to confront the situation that's gripping you so tensely and so wrongly, you know. And when you get over, it's so hard to get into that frame of mind. But once you dive in and to hell with the consequences, it inevitably is like a clearinghouse, you know.
What did your father think?
For sale, everything must go.
Yeah. And when you had success, what was your father's reaction?
Now, what would you mean by success?
Well, I was saying, true, it may not have amounted to a large amount of money making, but there was a certain amount of celebrity and notoriety, wasn't there?
Well, I managed to offend everyone all at the same time. You know, so I contradicted that famous old phrase that you could offend some of the people some of the time or fool all of the people so that blah, blah, blah. Was it Churchill? Right? Well, I turned that one up on its head. and made it being offensive not offensive. In return,
you made being offensive not offensive.
I made people think about themselves and the situation around them, and stop just accepting things and sitting back down and go, well, what can I do? You can do a lot. If a spasticated problem like me can come up with a way out of it, so can you.
Well, that's very impressive, I have to say. What were your reactions to the recent Sex Pistols activity? I remember asking you about this last time because I couldn't resist it, actually. But they've started again briefly, didn't they, with Frank Carter as playing the part of
I know nothing about the poor sausage.
Did you ever see any clips of it?
I've seen clips, but it's like I've seen some of these bands. Like there's one called the X Pistols too, and they go out and they do a karaoke of the Pistols, and that's more or less how I see what they're doing right now. It's a shame, right? In all these years, they still can't write their own songs, right? That's a bit sad to be stuck in my past.
But do you blame them for keeping going,
so to speak? Like a constipation.
Do you blame them for keeping going? I don't really.
Good luck to them. I don't care. If that's as good as it can get, well then, get with the program or don't. Oops, pardon.
Well, John, is that a pint of beer you've got on the go there, by the way, in a dimple mug?
It is. I've been up for 4 hours. Look, I've got
fantastic.
Irish in me.
That's brilliant. I love the way you're smoking, drinking, and there's what appears to be a telephone box behind you. It isn't actually a telephone box, but you are getting, I think you were saying earlier, you were given one. Someone's going to give you one.
Yeah, for a Thanksgiving here. So at last Thanksgiving in America will make sense to me. An actual, real, genuine British red telephone box. I'm going to turn it into an outdoor shower unit. It's already got the plumbing put in it. So I'll just put it outside. I want the neighbours to see me going to make a call while cleansing my soul.
That's brilliant. So there we are. So there is a bit of a...
It is how I approach life. Everything can be good, right?
How do you find living in America?
Really all right. Really all right. It's mad how they take their politics here, though. God, they're so bitter and twisted and divided about it. And it's like, get used to it. As I said years back in Britain, they're all tarred with the same brush, that lot. Politicians. Anyone who puts their faith in any one of them as the genius answer all for everything is a complete fool.
Are there particular...
Or a lazy religious person just transferring.
In your spoken word act, are there particular people who need to fear that they will come up and be and feel the full force of your wrath?
Oh no, it's not like that. I mean, I did show a few stills and things on the last one. I'm going to change that into something else. I'm not quite sure yet. But
slides.
I love slides. I pulled up some old pictures I had of Norman Wisdom, who I loved and adored.
That's brilliant.
And
just so you could do a riff about Norman Wisdom.
Well, it's the outfits he wore. They slightly childish kids' clothing, things like slightly too small for him, the dirty old wrinkled shirt and the tie. This was
school cap. The trousers were a little bit pulled up, weren't they?
Yeah, sorry, AC/DC, but this is going on a long time before.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of when I was young and going to school, so I then prop up pictures of that. By comparison. So you understand that, like, growing up with Norman Wisdom in your life was very, very important, right? And also you could chuck in there Jimmy Clitheroe and the Crackerjack Mob.
Did you mention them?
No, because I never liked that show. I thought it was a bit fake.
So other people like Norman Wisdom?
It was a dwarf woman dressed as a boy, you know.
Yeah, I found them very unsettling, I have to say.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how, when you get to our age, going back to those moments in your past are very, they're very emotional. They're very connecting, aren't they?
Yes,
people
they
that
are.
Used to love.
That don't mean you're stuck in a certain period of your past. I mean, my God, yesterday is my past also.
Yeah.
And plenty went wrong there.
Yeah. Well, John, I'm looking forward to it very much, and as are a great many people, and it's brilliant to talk to you. And so the Public Image Tour is I think it's in May, isn't it? The spoken word is, and you take about 3 weeks off between, or 2 weeks off, and then go straight back into 55 more dates. It's absolutely astonishing.
Well, what else am I going to do? 69? Oh, that's a great title, isn't it? 69.
And there we have it.
Can I just say, this is funny because most of my records got melted by my lovely wife when she accidentally set fire to the house in London. So I've been catching up with albums that just popped into my head that I wanted to hear at that moment. So right now I'm on just CDs, but I had to have...
Oh, right. Elton John's Madman Across the Water.
I loved that record when I was young. I thought it was very, very different and astounding. And I'm shocked that I never realised at the time. But there's a song on it called Rotten Peaches.
Oh, right.
Ha, ha, ha. Which could be an indication to peach brandy. One of my faves.
What a beautiful connection. John, it's lovely to talk to you, and we will vigorously plug both those tours when we put this up, and wish you the very best with them and with life in general. It's fantastic to talk to you.
Mr. Starmer doesn't cut the power.
Let's hope not. Great to see you anyway.
Yeah, we're old folks, right? We're having all our heating and electricity cut.
I'm proud of it. Very nice to see you. All the best.
Peace.
Okay.
May the road rise with you when your enemies always be behind you, mate. It's got to flat to batter and shatter.
Word down your way. Testing 2, 2.